The galaxy had seen wars before, but not like this. This one started because of a child. A small human girl with messy hair, quiet eyes, and a creature that refused to leave her side. Humans had joined the Galactic Union only a few decades ago. The other species thought they understood them. Loud, emotional, unpredictable, yes, but not dangerous anymore. The wars on Earth were gone. The humans had grown civilized, polite even. The galaxy liked to forget what they once were, but on a remote colony called Callus 9, that illusion broke. It was supposed to be a peaceful world shared by humans and a few alien races. Farms, open plains, gentle winds, the kind of place where no one expected trouble. But that morning, the sky was full of fire. Dropships burned through the clouds, landing near the settlement. The ground shook. The aliens came in silver armor, moving like shadows. They called themselves the Vorkesh, and they didn't come to negotiate. They came to collect resources and slaves. Humans were slow, they said, fragile, unfit for the hard work the Empire needed. They were wrong. Inside one of the small huts near the valley edge, a little girl slept under a red-striped blanket. Her breathing was soft, her face calm. Next to her, on the floor, sat a creature no alien had seen before. Small, broad, with black and white fur and eyes that gleamed like coals. A honey badger. Humans had brought many animals to their colonies for comfort, companionship, or farming. But this one was different. The girl called him Rook, and he treated her like his own cub. He had fought off venomous snakes, chased off wild beasts, and once bit through a drone that got too close. The settlers laughed and said, "He's just a pet." But anyone who looked in his eyes for too long knew he was more than that. The Vorkesh soldiers surrounded the hut. Their scanners found the human child inside, marked her as a high-value target. One of them raised his weapon and stepped forward. Inside, Rook's head lifted. His nose twitched. The air smelled wrong, metal, oil, danger. The fur along his back rose. His claws dug into the dirt. The girl stirred but didn't wake. The door burst open. The first alien barely had time to see the creature before it hit him. Rook moved like lightning, claws slicing through the soldier's armor. The alien screamed as his weapon fell. Another tried to aim, but Rook slammed into him, knocking him backward through the doorframe. Outside, the squad froze. What kind of animal moved like that? The scanners said it weighed less than 20 kilograms. Impossible. Then Rook stepped into the light. His fur was wet with blood. His small body stood firm between the hut and the aliens. His growl echoed like thunder. The commander barked an order. 3 soldiers opened fire. Bolts of energy scorched the air, but the creature didn't fall. He dodged, spun, lunged. The first alien dropped, then another. The rest stumbled backward, shouting. Inside the hut, the little girl finally woke. She blinked, confused, and saw her friend standing at the door. "Rook," she whispered. He turned his head for just a second, just to make sure she was safe. Then he faced the soldiers again, and the aliens learned something every old soldier in the galaxy should have remembered. Never touch what a human protects. Smoke drifted through the air as the last Vorkesh soldier crawled backward. His armor cracked open, his weapon sparking uselessly. The others shouted into their comms, demanding backup. Somewhere above the clouds, the orbiting warship received their distress call and sent reinforcements. Inside the hut, the child sat up, clutching the blanket. Her big brown eyes darted toward the doorway. Rook stood there, chest heaving, blood dripping from his claws. His breathing was low, controlled. The little girl whispered, "It's okay, Rook. I'm okay." He looked at her once, then stepped outside again. The wind picked up. Dust spun around his paws. The aliens were regrouping near their dropship, 30 meters away, setting up heavy rifles and scanning for targets. To them, it was unthinkable that one small animal had done this much damage. The commander barked, "It's just a beast!" "Burn it!" they fired. The ground exploded. Energy beams tore through the dirt, lighting up the field. But when the smoke cleared, the creature was gone. Then something slammed into their flank. A soldier screamed as claws ripped through his armor. Another fell, dragged down by a blur of white and black fur. The honey badger didn't stop. He didn't hide. He moved like a storm. Too fast. Too vicious to track. Each alien that tried to raise a weapon was already too late. From the nearby ridge, a pair of human colonists watched in stunned silence. They had hidden when the dropships landed, expecting to die. Now they saw what stood between them and extinction, a small creature they had once called cute. "Is that a honey badger?" one of them whispered. The other swallowed hard. "If it is, may every god in this galaxy protect whoever made it angry." Down below, Rook tore through the final soldier and stopped. His sides rose and fell as the adrenaline slowly faded. Around him, the field was silent except for the wind and the hum of the aliens' half-destroyed weapons. He turned toward the hut, making sure the girl was safe. She peeked from behind the doorway, smiling weakly. "Good boy," she said softly, and for a second, just a small second, Rook's eyes softened. The fury in them faded, replaced by something calm and loyal. Then the sky trembled. Dozens of lights appeared above, new ships entering the atmosphere. The Vorkesh reinforcements. They came fast, breaking through the clouds like falling meteors. The air burned with their descent. Inside one of the ships, the alien commander received the report from the ground. His voice shook with rage. "One creature destroyed an entire unit?" he shouted. "Impossible! Prepare the assault! Burn the settlement to ash!" As the ships closed in, the human colonists scrambled to evacuate the girl. But Rook didn't move. He just watched the falling ships, claws scraping the dirt. Something deep inside him stirred, a primal, ancient instinct. He didn't understand strategy or orders. He understood one thing only. They tried to touch his human. He looked back at her once more. She was holding the blanket close, whispering his name. That was all he needed. When the first dropship landed, Rook was already running toward it. The first dropship hit the ground with a heavy thud, shaking the dirt beneath the village. Its engines roared, throwing dust into the air. The doors slid open and armored Vorkesh soldiers spilled out, shouting orders. They were ready for war, except they weren't ready for him. Rook was already moving through the tall grass, silent as smoke. The sunset burned across the horizon, painting the battlefield gold and red. The aliens swept the field with scanners, their voices echoing through comms. Life form detected. Small size, low mass. Eliminate it. Low mass. Small size. Words they would regret forever. Rook leapt. The first soldier didn't even scream. The second tried to fire but hit his own comrade. Within seconds, chaos tore through their ranks. The air filled with the sharp animal growl that didn't sound natural. It sounded furious. From the ridge above, the colonists watched in disbelief. The little girl's father, a man named Cole, had finally reached the hut. His heart pounded as he saw what the creature was doing. "That thing's defending her," he said quietly. He's protecting her like she's his own." The child clung to her father's arm, whispering, "Don't stop him, Daddy. He's my friend." Cole stared at the honey badger, standing alone against dozens of aliens, and felt something cold run down his spine. He had fought in human wars. He had seen tanks, plasma fire, orbital strikes, but never anything like this. Rook was beyond fear, beyond reason. One of the alien commanders yelled into his comms, "Deploy drones! Surround the creature!" A swarm of silver drones zipped into the air, forming a ring around the field. Blue energy beams shot downward. Explosions lit up the night. The earth cracked, trees burned, but when the smoke cleared, the creature was still standing. Half his fur was scorched. One eye glowed faintly red from blood and fury. He let out a sound the aliens didn't have a word for, something between a roar and a snarl, raw enough to make their blood freeze. Rook charged the nearest drone, leaping higher than any natural creature should. His claws tore through the metal. Sparks rained down. He landed on a soldier's chest, crushed the armor, and kept going. In orbit, the Vorkesh captain watched through a live feed. His mandibles clicked nervously. "This is not possible. That animal should not be alive," another officer whispered. "Sir, the humans call it a honey badger. They say it doesn't know fear. Then it will learn fear," the captain snarled. "Prepare orbital strike authorization." Back on the surface, the colonists began evacuating the settlement. The father carried his daughter toward the bunker, but she looked over his shoulder again and again, watching her strange protector. Rook stood in the firelight, surrounded by alien bodies and broken drones. His fur smoked, his eyes burned, but his stance never wavered. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of ozone. High above, a red beam began to glow through the clouds. The Vorkesh ship was charging a planetary weapon. Cole saw it too. His face went pale. "They're going to vaporize the whole valley," he shouted. The girl pressed her small hand against the glass window of the bunker. "Rook." And as if he heard her, the honey badger turned his head toward her voice. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He stood there, claws flexing, ready to face whatever came next. Somewhere deep in his instincts, past the pain, past the blood, past the impossible odds, there was only one thought: no one touches my human. The sky cracked open. The clouds turned red as the Vorkesh warship charged its main cannon. Thunder rolled across the plains, shaking the huts and rattling the windows of the underground bunker. Even from below, the humans could feel the hum of power building in the atmosphere. Cole pressed his daughter against his chest. "Stay down," he whispered, his voice shaking. "If that weapon fires, there won't be anything left of this place." Above them, Rook stood alone. The heat in the air burned his fur, but he didn't flinch. The alien soldiers had fallen silent now, watching him from a distance. Even they knew something unnatural was happening. The creature wasn't afraid. He didn't even move away from the glowing target zone that shimmered beneath his paws. He just looked up. The red light from the warship began to pierce the clouds. The beam started as a single spark, then widened, roaring toward the ground like a falling star. The Vorkesh captain leaned forward on his command deck. "End it," he hissed. The beam struck. The entire valley lit up white. The ground cracked. Wind tore through the village, ripping the roofs off houses. For a few terrible seconds, everything vanished in blinding light. Then, silence. When the dust cleared, the aliens stared in disbelief. The hut was gone. The dirt was scorched to glass. But standing in the middle of the crater, still breathing, still alive, was Rook. His armor was shattered, his fur burned, but his claws dug deep into the soil. He had taken the full hit. One of the Vorkesh soldiers whispered in horror, "That's not possible. Nothing survives a planetary strike." Rook lifted his head. Smoke drifted around him like fog. His eyes glowed with something no scanner could measure. Will. He roared, and the sound shook the air like a storm. The alien staggered backward. Even the commander, miles away in orbit, felt his throat tighten. "What is that thing?" he whispered. Down in the bunker, the girl pushed free of her father's arms and ran to the surface before anyone could stop her. The wind tore at her hair as she climbed the ridge. She stopped when she saw him, her protector, standing in the smoking ruin, still between her and the enemy. "Rook," she cried. He turned his head. When he saw her, something in him steadied. His body trembled, but he stayed standing, forcing his breath in and out through scorched lungs. The girl ran forward, ignoring the shouts behind her. The aliens saw her, too. A surviving soldier raised his weapon. "Target the human!" He never got the shot off. Rook moved before the trigger was half pulled. One leap, just one, and he was there. The alien's body hit the ground before the echo of the shot faded. The girl fell to her knees beside Rook. She reached for his fur, tears streaking her face. "Please, don't stop, please!" He lowered his head, resting it against her hand. The world around them was fire and smoke, but in that small circle of silence, everything felt still. Above, the Vorkesh ship adjusted course. The captain's voice came through the comms again. "Focus all batteries on that sector. Wipe them from orbit. I want proof that it's dead." Rook lifted his head again. He could feel the vibration in the air, the next strike forming. He turned toward the sky. Something old and violent stirred deep in him, deeper than instinct. He didn't understand technology, but he understood threats. He took a step forward, then another. The ground sizzled beneath his paws. His fur glowed faintly red from heat. Then, with a snarl that split the silence, Rook charged straight toward the wreckage of the first dropship. Inside it, the aliens' weapons still hummed with leftover energy. And as the second orbital beam began to fall, the honey badger did the one thing no alien could ever predict. He ran toward the light. The second orbital beam tore through the sky, a streak of fire and rage aimed at the surface. The Vorkesh ship's sensors locked onto the crater where Rook had stood moments ago. The captain leaned forward, certain this time nothing could survive. But Rook wasn't there anymore. Through the smoke and debris, he had vanished into the wreck of the fallen dropship. Inside, sparks danced over twisted metal. The smell of ozone burned in the air. His eyes scanned the alien tech. He didn't understand it, but instinct told him what mattered. Power, heat, energy. Outside, the beam struck. The ground shook, the wreck exploded, and from that explosion came a flash brighter than the sun. The blast rippled outward, throwing alien soldiers like rag dolls. Then silence again. For a heartbeat, everyone thought it was over. The soldiers lowered their weapons, stepping cautiously toward the wreck. The smoke cleared slowly, curling away like a curtain being lifted. And there he was. Rook walked out of the fire. His body glowed faintly. The scorched plates of alien metal fused into his fur like armor. His claws were blackened steel now, his eyes burning bright gold. Every movement he made left small sparks in the dirt. The aliens froze. None dared fire. Rook stopped, looked at them, and let out a growl so deep the ground itself seemed to tremble. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. The nearest soldier panicked and shot first. That was the last thing he ever did. Rook was faster than the flash of plasma. He tore through the line like a storm tearing through dry grass. The air filled with screams, the smell of fire, and the sharp crack of alien armor splitting apart. In the bunker, Cole and the other colonists watched through the cracked monitor feed. The little girl clutched her father's arm, whispering, "He's fighting for us." Cole couldn't speak. His throat was tight, his heart pounding. "That's not fighting," he said softly. "That's vengeance." High above, the Vorkesh captain watched the destruction unfold from his command deck. Dozens of soldiers were gone, drones down, the base annihilated. He slammed his claws on the console. "Send every unit. I want that planet erased." But one of his officers hesitated. "Sir, permission to speak." "What?" The officer's voice shook. "If one small creature can do this, imagine what their species could do if provoked." The captain froze. The words hung heavy in the silence. For the first time, fear crept into his voice. "You think this is what humans train their animals for?" Back on the surface, Rook climbed the ridge overlooking the field. His breathing was slow, steady. Behind him, the bodies of the Vorkesh lay scattered like broken armor. Ahead, the sky glowed with light from the enemy's ship. He looked down the valley and saw her, his human. The little girl standing outside the bunker now, looking up at him, hands pressed to her chest. The sight steadied him. The wind carried her voice faintly through the smoke. "Rook, come back!" He didn't move. Instead, he looked back toward the sky where the massive ship began to descend. Its engines screamed as it prepared to land. The Vorkesh weren't retreating this time. They were coming down to finish it themselves. The captain's voice thundered through the loudspeakers, deep and cruel. "We will burn this planet. We will erase every trace of your kind." Rook tilted his head, his fur rippling in the heat. He didn't understand their language, but he didn't need to. The tone was enough. It was threat. It was hate, and that he understood perfectly. He lowered himself, claws biting into the dirt, muscles tense. The air shimmered around him from the heat of his rage. The badger who once guarded a child was gone. What stood there now was something far older and far more dangerous. As the ship's shadow covered the valley, the honey badger charged straight toward it. The Vorkesh warship broke through the clouds, its shadow swallowing the valley below. Its engines screamed, shaking the earth as it prepared to fire. Hundreds of armored soldiers lined its decks, staring down at one small shape, sprinting toward them through the smoke and fire. The creature didn't run like prey. It ran like a weapon. Rook's claws dug trenches in the dirt. Each step sent small sparks flying. His fur was streaked with ash and metal. His eyes, bright gold now, never blinked. Behind him, the wind carried the faint sound of a human child calling his name, her voice trembling with both fear and faith. The Vorkesh captain leaned over the bridge console. "Focus all cannons! Kill it before it reaches the ship!" Dozens of plasma bolts rained down. The ground exploded in waves of blue flame, but Rook never stopped. He leapt between fire bursts, each movement impossibly fast, each snarl louder than the thunder that shook the sky. He reached the landing struts and leapt. His claws tore into metal as he climbed straight up the side of the ship, ignoring the blast slamming into him. The Vorkesh soldiers fired wildly, shouting in disbelief. One alien screamed, "It's climbing the hull!" "That's impossible." Rook didn't care what was possible. He was done listening. He burst through an access hatch, tearing it open like paper. The corridor inside glowed with blue light and panic. Soldiers opened fire. Rook slammed into them with bone-breaking force. Alarms echoed through the ship, red lights flashing. In the command deck, the captain shouted, "Seal the doors! Seal—" The words died in his throat as a shape dropped from the ceiling. The honey badger landed in the center of the deck, metal claws glowing hot. The captain froze, staring into those gold eyes, realizing too late that this wasn't a mindless beast. This was vengeance wearing fur. Rook roared, a sound so loud the deck panels vibrated. Then he lunged. The control console shattered, sparks flying like fireworks. The captain fell backward as the ship's systems screamed and overload warnings filled the air. Outside, the colonists saw the warship's lights flicker. It trembled, engines failing, smoke pouring from its sides. Cole grabbed his daughter and pulled her behind cover. "Get down!" A moment later, the entire ship exploded. The sky turned white for a second, then fell silent except for the soft whisper of wind. Burning metal rained down in the distance, lighting up the hills like stars. When the light faded, the humans stepped out from the bunker. The valley was still, quiet, almost peaceful again. Cole looked around, eyes wide. "He did it," he whispered. "He actually—" Then he heard a low, rough sound from the ridge. Rook stood there, covered in dust and blood, his body trembling from exhaustion. He limped toward them, one paw dragging. The little girl broke free from her father's grasp and ran to him. She wrapped her arms around his neck, tears streaking her face. "You came back," she whispered. Rook let out a soft grunt, almost like a sigh. His head lowered into her arms, heavy but calm. The fire reflected in his eyes, warm and alive. Around them, the world was broken, but they were safe. The surviving colonists stared in silence. One of them whispered, "That thing saved us all." Cole looked at his daughter and the badger beside her. "That's not a thing," he said quietly. "That's family." Far above the planet, distant ships watched the explosion from orbit. Across the Galactic Union, the news spread fast. A human child was attacked on Callus 9. The invaders were destroyed by a single Earth creature. No one laughed at the story. No one doubted it. And every alien who heard it remembered one thing humans had been saying for centuries. You can fight a soldier. You can fight an army. But if you touch what a human loves, you'll meet something that doesn't know how to stop.